All right, this is me. I have about 30 years of experience in design, and I've worked across a wide variety of industries. I've worked in automotive, furniture, product, apparel, and of course, interior design. I have worked for General Motors doing exhibit design, Ford Motors doing the color materials for the interiors and exterior of cars, and Nike as well, doing color materials for footwear and apparel. Most recently, I've come from Harley-Davidson, where I led the team who developed all the color, materials, finishes, and graphics for all Harley-Davidson motorcycles, as well as live wire motorcycles. Currently, I teach at College for Creative Studies in Detroit. I teach design, I teach color and materials, as well as interior design, and I run my own consultancy. And most of my clients are in the commercial sector, so I still do some consulting for Harley-Davidson. All right. When I first went out on my own to do some consulting, which was probably about 12 years ago, I decided I needed a mission statement. And this is my mission statement: to leverage the power and emotion of color and materials to create something, that product, that environment, that is both desirable and thought-provoking. So what is color? We probably all have an opinion on what it is, but let's look at some of the things that color can be. Color is often on trend. Now, trend is a very important and sometimes very complicated piece of color. Basically, a trend is something that's like you see that's coming, or people's behaviors that are shifting. When it relates to colors, often we'll start to see new colors pop up in the market, and we can highlight that as a trend. And trendy colors are important to what we select when we get dressed, or whether we do an interior of a home or we're designing a product. Pantone has made a business out of telling us every year what that trend color is. And I won't get into it, but there's a lot of research that goes behind this selection of color. But this year it's peach fuzz. So when you leave here today, I'd like you to kind of keep your eyes open as you do your shopping or whatever you may be doing, and look for that peach fuzz. But bottom line is, trend is part of color. Slight delay. All right. So color is meaningful. That's the second thing I want to talk about. Culture places meaning behind specific colors. We look at white as being pure and something that brides wear. We look at black as somber and for mourning. For Western culture, green represents nature and renewal, but can also represent good luck. For Eastern cultures, red what represents luck and good fortune. Yellow is cheery, and it's always the color of the original smiley face. And then blue is serene and calming. When we talk about, or we say blue skies ahead, we're referring to calm and good times to come. Color is purposeful. Nature doesn't assign color at random, nor should we. Color can be used to camouflage something. It can be used to attract something. It can tell us what to do, right? It tells us to stop or go at a stoplight. And then also it can provide safety and alert through visibility. And it can, tell us, hey, this is the red, this is fire, we're gonna pull this and we're gonna make some noise. Color is personal. Now, we all have colors that we like and dislike. And usually that reasoning is based on memories that you've had or experiences that you've had with this color. On occasion at College for Creative Studies, we give the students an assignment to research, go deep and research a specific color. One such student researched yellow, and part of her process was polling people about their opinions on yellow. So what she did is she had a large collection of yellow swatches, and she asked all her participants to pull a color and then say why they pulled that color. So one person, he pulled a certain shade of yellow because it reminded him of a toy car that he had growing up that he liked. Another older gentleman pulled another shade of yellow because it reminded him of the sweater an old girlfriend used to wear. And then he kind of joked and told the student to make sure that his wife didn't find out about it. Finally, color is emotion. It makes us feel something. But why? It has to be a deeper reason than just culture and experience. It turns out there's a little bit of science behind why we react to certain colors as well. So basic color science 101. The human eye can detect more than 10 million colors. Also, hue, which is the actual color itself, whether it's red or blue, as well as saturation, so how intense, how much gray does the color have? That affects our vision, how we perceive it as well. And finally, value, how light or dark the color is. Color is reflected light. So stay with me for just a second. We see color because of the combination of light, our eyes, and our brain. So if you think of a prism, and if you've ever held a prism up and the color shoots through it and you see the rainbow of color, that's because color is made up of infinite number of light. So when light hits an object, it absorbs it absorbs a lot of wavelengths and it reflects some. So it absorbs all the colors that we don't see and reflects the colors that we see. So I see your red sweater because it is absorbing every color of the spectrum except red. And it's reflecting red back into my eyes, which then my brain translates so that I think that I see red. The important thing here is that those wavelengths, the point I want to make is that the wavelengths have different frequencies. And those frequencies can affect our biology. It can affect our breathing, our heart rate, and our body temperature. So let's look at a few studies that actually prove this point. There was a study done in 2014 with red and blue, and they asked participants to put their hand on either a red object or a blue object and then say when they felt that the object was getting hot and warm. Individuals who put their hands on the red objects on average took longer to register the warmth. And then they even had to dial up the red objects by like 30 degrees. Now, why is this? It's because red is intense. Red kind of gets our heart rate going. Red is, we think of anger sometimes when we think of red, but we expect things red to be hot. So that means it took people longer to register that warmth, as opposed to when they put their hand on something blue, they expected it to be cool, so they were surprised quicker when it actually felt warm. All right, in 2019 at Milan Design Week, Google created a whole experience around neuroaesthetics and how design and space and color could affect your well-being. So Google partnered with Johns Hopkins, Ready Made Architecture, and Muto, which is a furniture brand, to create these spaces. And they were out to prove or to study how colors and spaces could affect the well-being of people and put some science behind it. So more than just a kind of questionnaire how you were feeling. What they actually did is before visitors entered this interactive exhibit, they had to put on a wristband. And this wristband monitored like body temperature and heart rate and a few other things. So once the participants or the visitors really, because everybody was at design week to be inspired, and I heard that the lines for this space were crazy long, so everybody wanted to be a part of it. So once the visitors had their wristband, they would walk through these 3 different spaces that were very different in feeling. Like they used different materials and textures, but also different color schemes in each room. And as the people wandered, their wristbands were monitoring their heart rate and their skin temperature. And the goal was to find, to give each participant a printout that told them which room they were most at ease at. Not which room they most liked, it's which room were their body vitals most relaxed. So at the end, each person did receive that data. A lot of people were surprised because even though they liked a certain room and maybe gravitated towards something and thought that was the space they would get something else because their color influenced them in a different way. But they received this, a watercolor printout from each room, or not from each room. They received a printout from the specific room that they were most at ease at, and then along with a list, of course, all the product and items that were in there. But basically, what it finds out is it's important to personalize space, and that color, along with texture and materials, does have effect on our well-being, and just how, and each individual has his unique and personalized responses to color. This leads us right into color therapy. Color therapy is based on the idea that we can use color to treat or help physical and mental health. Color can alter our biology and our mood. We can use color to influence mood and well-being. There are 2 techniques for using color: physical and reflection. So physical is actually seeing the color and being surrounded by the color. Color therapists believe that color can enter the body through the eyes as well as the skin. And that's kind of where color light comes in. Reflection is more about thinking about a color or related to meditation, maybe meditating around a color. So we've learned that every color has a visible wavelength and has unique frequencies, and those can produce different effects on people. So I mentioned the Milan Furniture Fair. I had the pleasure of, we're going to go look at color therapy and the science of color in action through a couple examples now. This year, I was lucky enough to attend the Milan Furniture Fair. And if you're not familiar with that event, it's been happening for about 60 years, and it's takes over the city of Milan. There's a lot of brands and furniture companies go, and they create exhibits in the space, as well as just outside of the city is the world's largest furniture fair that happens. Something like 500,000 people attend, and it's geared towards architects and designers, and everyone's there, not so much to see the new product now, but just to experience and be inspired. This year, color, mental health, and well-being were definitely overarching themes. So we'll look just at 2 examples, and we'll review like how, we'll talk about how they use color to affect mental health and well-being. The first is Muto, which is the furniture company in the Brea, and they create apartment in the Brea neighborhood, and they had 6 rooms with 6 unique color schemes, and each room was set up to kind of evoke a different mood and promote certain physical activities. So the kitchen space included this vibrant green. And green is known to facilitate a connection to nature. And connections to nature are energizing. They boost our mood, and they make us more likely to socialize. And they actually help bonding. So that's the type of environment they wanted to create for the kitchen space. In the living room, they chose some contrasting colors, like warm, deep contrasting colors with pastels. And they were trying to create a more welcoming feeling, and again, inviting that socialization for the space. The office space was a lot darker and muted, and even contained this kind of like a little lounge area. And it was softer color, darker, softer, muted tones that would promote reflection and focus and relaxation. And then let's look at Google again. Google they've doubled down on color this year for sure. So they created a space, and it was called Making Sense of Color. And it was another immersive experience. And they did this in collaboration with an arts and research lab called Chromasonic. Now, Chromasonic is known, and this is what they did here, is they have a proprietary technique where they use technology to convert light waves into sound waves and sound waves into light waves. So they create an experience where you can actually see sound and hear light, and they do it through color. And it's as complicated as that sound. What it was is like you would walk through these spaces, get kind of a better photo there, where and they had it set up with screens. So as you moved, you would hear tones, and then the colors would shift. But what it did was it forced you to focus on what was happening. It was forcing you to focus on the moment. And you have to imagine that you are in a busy metropolitan city of Milan that's got 500,000 additional people added to it. And you're all trying to go to the same events. So for Google to put you in a space where suddenly you could tune out everything and just focus on where you were is pretty epic. And the link to well-being was obvious, because suddenly you felt calmer, you were more focused on what was happening. And they even invited you to sit down if you wanted to in these spaces. You could be alone or you could be with people. But Google and their head of hardware design, Ivy Ross, they've been exploring this idea of neuroaesthetics and how arts in general and color can really affect our well-being. And this was kind of it in action. Now, once you went through this light experience, you were put out into a series of rooms that you could see, and each room asked a different question of color. So how do you see color? How do you smell color? How do you feel color? What does color sound like? What does color taste like? So they were really asking us to think more of color and not questioning the importance, but asking their visitors to really think about how important color is. And then in the final room, as you went through this space, you entered and you saw this long, like, dining room table. And it was set up in a gradient of color, and along with the traditional table setting, even though it was a more modern table setting, they had mixed in the new colors of the Google Home products. They had actually products there. But again, this was interesting because this this inspired people, or it got you talking about where you wanted to sit at this table. So you'd be with your friend, you know, if your friends, your colleagues, you were going through this exhibit, you're all trying to figure out which color you would sit at. And again, even in the final space, it had you talking about color and why. So I hope today that you gained a little bit better understanding of color and know that, you know, as designers, as individuals, what we do matters, and the colors we pick do make a difference.